everyone. So in this video, I'm just going to show you a couple things for fractions that are very important for finding the least common multiple, the greatest common factor, and then simplifying improper fractions into mixed numbers. So I just have a couple examples for you, and hopefully it helps a little bit. Remember, you can watch this video over and over again to kind of see the process. But yeah, so it might be a little long just because there's a lot to cover in this. But let me show you the first example. So first we're gonna add two fractions that have unlike units, so unlike denominators, so their bottom number is not the same. Okay, so let's say we had 2/5 plus 3/6. Okay, so the bottom numbers are not the same, so we have to change both of the fractions to make the bottom number the same. Okay, so to do that I have to find the least common multiple, which, if you remember, is the smallest multiple that they have in common. Okay, that they have the same. So to find that, I just have to list the multiples of 5 and list the multiples of 6 and find what the smallest one is that they both have in common. And the goal is for you to eventually do this in your head. Okay, but for now, if you can't think of one right off the top of your head, list the multiples and then find the one that they have in common that's the smallest. Okay, so if I were to list the multiples of 5, it would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And remember, you can start by just listing a certain number of them. If you want to start by listing 5 and then move on to the other number, you can. Remember, multiples go on forever, so you can add more multiples onto your list if you need to. So then I list the multiples for 6. So that's 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, okay, dot, 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 right? They go on forever. So then I start to look at both lines and see what the smallest number is that they have in common. And so you might have seen it already, or you might have known it already, but 30 is the smallest number that they have in common. Okay, so we're going to change both of the bottom numbers on these fractions to be 30. So I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to get rid of the multiples. Okay, so these go away. In order to make it easier, I'm going to rewrite both of the fractions. So rewrite them vertically, so that way I can show all of my work on the side. Okay, and I want you to do the same thing. So 2/5 and then 3/6. Okay. We want to change both of the bottom numbers to 30, so we have to think of what we multiply 5 by to get 30, and that's 6. So I'm going to multiply 5 by 6 to get 30 for my new denominator. Whatever I do on the bottom, I do on the top. Okay, so if I multiply the bottom by 6, I'm going to multiply the top by 6. Okay, so I'm going to multiply 2 by 6 and get 12. So my new fraction, okay, my new fraction for 2/5 is now 12/30. Remember, they're the same value, they equal the same amount, but they just look different, right? We're putting it almost like a mask on it, making it look different, okay? Then to change this fraction, I do the same thing, but I have to think to myself, what do I multiply 6 by to get 30? It's really tempting to just go ahead and multiply it by the same numbers that you multiplied up here, but you're just going to multiply 6 by whatever you have to multiply it by to get 30. Okay, so I multiply 6 by 5 to get 30. So 6 times 5 is 30. Whatever I do on the bottom, I do on the top. So I multiply the top by 30. Not by 30, no. Multiply the top by 5. Okay, 3 times 5 is 15. So my new fraction, my new equivalent fraction for 3/6 is now 15/30. Okay, so my new addition sentence is 12/30. Okay, 12/30 plus 15/30. Maybe, but my board will work. There we go. Okay, and then all I have to do is add like normal. Okay, so 12 plus 15 equals 27, and my denominator stays the same. So my final answer is 27/30. And it's not an improper fraction, so I don't have to change it into a mixed number. 27 and 30 don't. Oh, actually, they do have something in common. I just realized. We'll come back to this when I talk about simplifying. So remember 27/30. Okay. So that's how you add like or unlike units, unlike fractions numerically. So you find the least common multiple, multiply the top and bottom of each fraction to get the same denominator, which will change the top as well, okay? So if you change the bottom, you're going to change the top as well, okay? And then you add like normal and get your final answer. And again, I'll come back to this to simplify it in a little bit, okay? So next, I am going to talk about simplifying. So we're actually just going to start with this fraction right here. And then I have another example as well, okay? So let's say we got this answer and we're thinking to ourselves, okay, can I make that any smaller? Can I find an equivalent fraction that is more concise? The goal for fractions is we always want them to be as small as possible because they're just easier to work with, right? So if we pause on that for a second, if you think of, let's see, if you think of 1/2, okay? Technically, an equivalent fraction to 1/2 would be 12/24, okay? Because 12 is half of 24. So these are equivalent, but I would much rather work with a smaller fraction like 1/2 than 12/24. That's just me, but in math language, in math tradition, they want you to keep it as simple as possible. So that's why we call it simplifying, because we're making it more simple, okay? So going back to 27/30ths, at first I didn't think they had anything in common because I was mistaken. I thought 27 was a prime number. But as I was looking at it, I was like, actually, hold on a second. 27 can be divided by 3, okay? Let's see if you know it before I do, okay? 24 is divided by 3 8 times, so 27 is divided by 3 9 times, okay? And then, of course, 30 has 3 in common as well. 30 divided by 3 gives us 10. So right there, what I informally did was I found the greatest common factor between 27 and 30, okay? The biggest number that they can both be divided by is 3, okay? If I didn't know that off the top of my head, I could list the factors of 27 and 30 and find the biggest one that they have in common. So it's the opposite of finding the least common multiple, okay? So let's say we didn't know that 3 was the greatest common factor. Let me list the factors of 27 and 30. So the factors, or the numbers that make up 27 when multiplied together, are 1 and 27. 2 does not go into 27 because it's an odd number. 3 goes into 27 9 times. Okay, 4 does not go into it, 5 does not go into it, so on and so forth. I believe those are the only factors of 27. Might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this, as I'm thinking of it right now on this Saturday, yes, I think those are the only factors. So, anyway, if I were to list the factors of 30, again, 1 and 30 make 30. Okay, 2 and 15 make 30. 3 and 10 make 30. And then 5 and 6 make 30, okay? So, sorry, it's really sloppy, but the factors of 30 are 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, 30, okay? So we look at these two numbers, we look at their factors and see what the biggest one they have in common is. So the biggest one they have in common is 3, right here and right here, okay? They don't have anything else in common above 3. So I'm going to use 3 to simplify 27/30ths. So I will show you how to do that. This is actually new to you all. I haven't taught it to you yet. I'm going to teach it to you this upcoming week, but I figured I'd put it all in one video just so it's there for you, okay? Anyway, so 27/30ths. I found the greatest common factor, which, what was it? 3, that's right, okay. So I'm going to do the opposite again of working with the least common multiple. So I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 3. So I divide the top by 3. Whatever I do on top, I do on bottom, okay? And anytime you change part of a fraction, you have to change the other part as well, okay? So divide both parts by 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So my simplest form of this fraction is 9/10. 9 and 10 don't have anything in common that they can both be divided by. So my final answer for this original addition sentence is 9/10, okay? So I'm going to show you one more example of simplifying, and then we're going to talk about changing an improper fraction into a mixed number, and that'll be it. So Going on to the next one. Let's say I was adding and my final answer was 6/30. Okay? I'm sure you already know right away, just from the previous problems we were working on, something that they both have in common, but I'm going to explain the simplifying process again. Okay? So to simplify a fraction, if I've already found the answer, that sort of thing, I need to find the greatest common factor between 6 and 30. Okay? So if I don't know that off the top of my head, I can list the factors of 6 and 30. So, the numbers when multiplied together that make up 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and that's it, okay? So 1, 2, 3, and 6 are the only numbers that can be multiplied together to get 6. Okay, then for 30, I just did this, but 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30, okay? So I look for the biggest number that they have in common. You might have been thinking already, oh, they both can be divided by 3. That is true, but we're looking for the biggest factor that they have in common. So yes, they have 3 in common, but if we keep looking, 6 is actually the biggest number that they have in common, okay? So you technically could still get the right answer if you do 3, but it's not going to be in its simplest form, okay? So if I'm if I'm making a fraction as simple as possible, I want to go with the biggest number that I could divide both the top and bottom by. So technically I could divide both by 3, but it would make more sense to do 6 because that will put it in its simplest form. Okay, so I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 6. Whatever I do on top, I do on the bottom, or whatever I do on the bottom, I do on the top. Okay, always whenever working with fractions. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. 30 divided by 6 is 5. So the final answer for, or equivalent fraction for 6/30 is 1/5. Okay? While I'm here, I'm just going to show you what would happen if I divided by 3 instead. If I forgot that they had 6 in common, I could divide by 3, both the top and the bottom. So 6 divided by 3 and 30 divided by 3, that would give me 2/10. But right away, you should be looking at that and thinking, okay, 2 and 10 do have something in common to make them more simple, okay? So what I would have to do is I would just have to divide again. It's not the end of the world, but if we use the greatest common factor to begin with, then we save us some work, right? We lose that extra step. So all I would have to do here is find the greatest common factor now between 2 and 10, which this one's pretty easy to know off the top of your head. It's 2, okay? So 2 divided by 2 and 10 divided by 2 gives me 1/5. So we got the same fraction as before, but we had an extra step. So that's why it's important to find the biggest factor that they have in common. But if for some reason you miss it or start with a smaller factor first, you'll just have to do a couple extra things to get the final simplified version. Okay, so it's not the end of the world, but yeah, it's helpful to find the biggest one first. Okay, let's see. I'm going to show you one more, and then we'll do changing an improper fraction to a mixed number. Okay, so let's say I had 8/12. This one's a little different because in the last one I divided the top and bottom by a digit that was already in the fraction. It was 6/30, so I could divide the top and bottom by 6. But here, 8 cannot divide 12 evenly, so I actually have to find the biggest factor that they have in common. So the factors that make up 8 are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 4, and 8. And then you probably already know what it is by now, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12 are the factors of 12. Okay, multiplied together, these get 12, right? So the biggest number that they have in common is 4. So I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 4, okay? So 8 divided by 4 and 12 divided by 4, that gives me 2/3, okay? And 2/3 cannot be simplified anymore, so that is the final answer, okay? So, bottom line, to summarize, in order to add fractions numerically that don't have the same unit, you need to use the least common multiple, okay? So it's the number that they have in common that's the smallest, okay? And then for simplifying, you need to use the greatest common factor, so it's the biggest factor that they have in common, okay? So I know it's confusing. I know they are very similar, but I'm sure over time you will get it. You'll grasp it, okay? Last but not least, I'm going to show you changing an improper fraction into a mixed number. So remember, improper fraction means that the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So the top number is bigger than the bottom number. So let's say I had, I'm coming up with one on the fly here. I had 33, let's do 33 27ths, okay? So that's a funky number. What I would do there, and you guys are familiar with this, so there are two ways that you can do it. And you're essentially doing the same thing in both of them, but just kind of looking at it a little differently. So one way that you guys have already learned is by first making a whole with this. So the unit is 27. To make a whole with this unit, I would need 27 27ths, right? So 27 27ths. So that leaves me, so I've used 27 of those 27ths, which leaves me with 6 27ths after that. So I essentially took 27 27ths away from 33 27ths, which left me with 6 27ths, okay? So the language gets a little funky. That's why I'm not a huge fan of this format, but I know some of you prefer it, so that's okay. So that 27 27ths that I pulled out is my one whole, and then whatever is left over, I bring down to kind of attach to the whole number, okay? So 1 and 6 27ths would be my mixed number, right? It's a mixed number because it has a whole number and a fraction, so it's a mixed type of numbers, if you will. But maybe some of you noticed this is actually not in its simplest form. So what we would do from there, we would simplify 6 27ths. So I'm going to just do it really quickly in my head. 6 and 27 have 3 in common. So our final answer would be 1 and 2 ninths. Okay? Now it's in its simplest form, and that's my final answer. Okay? There is a quick trick to turning an improper fraction into a mixed number, so I will go ahead and show you that really quick. So it's slightly different than what I just did, but I'm going to use the same fraction just so you can see. So 33 27ths. This is something I was taught when I was a kid, and now learning the why, I can use the quick trick. So the one I just did is the why, like why does this work? So as long as you know that, then you are allowed to use this quick trick, okay? So I did already briefly teach this to y'all, but at least it's in the video. You can go back and watch it a couple times. So what I learned was the first step is I look to see how many times the denominator goes into the numerator. So I'm like dividing 27 into 33. So 27 goes into 33 one time, okay? Then I subtract the numerator and the denominator. So 33 minus 27 gives me 6. And then I keep the same denominator. I keep the same unit. That doesn't change. So 27 went into 33 one time. 33 minus 27 gave me 6. And then I keep the same denominator. So 1 and 6 27ths. And then from there, I still would have to simplify. So remember, we found the greatest common factor for 6 and 27, which was 3. So it became 1 and 2 ninths, okay? So there's the quick trick for you. You have to know the why first before you're allowed to do this, okay? So anyway, this is how I learned. So I'm glad that you guys are learning the why, though, and why that makes sense. So anyway, I think that's it. So yeah, keep watching this. If you need to go back, it's a good resource, right? Even if you watch the same video 100 times, go back and learn this, because I promise you it will help you so much in the future, especially when you get to middle school and things like that. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you later. Bye.